If you've got questions, I've got answers. If you are already a part of our Flipping 50 community, somehow in a program or in our Flipping 50 membership, you've already got the best place to ask questions and to literally get answers live. However, if you're not yet in a group program and you've got questions and need a little hand, we have a Facebook group just for you. It's called the Flipping 50 Insiders. So Flipping 50. And the Insiders comes from, this is exactly where I go to get a roundup for community questions that you have about what you're doing and how maybe you can make it better. You've heard a podcast, you've seen a blog, or you've seen an episode of Flipping 50 TV, and you know enough, but not quite all the things. So that's probably where your questions come from, and you know enough to ask a question, which is really a great place to be. So I'm going to do my due diligence and answer 3 of those today. My questions today come from Mary, Susie, and Kathy, and my guess is they may be yours too. I'm Deborah Atkinson. You're listening to Flipping 50, where I address your top struggles and concerns. Most of all, hope to inspire you to change the way you age by changing the way you think about aging. I share what to eat, how to move, and how to change your mindset so that you can have the energy, the vitality that you want in this second and better half. So let's dive in. The first question comes from Mary. She says, I know you say ideally to wait an hour or so before working out, and then wait another hour or so to fuel with protein. That works well if I work from home, but it's not usually the case. Do you have a suggested schedule for those of us who need to? And basically, I won't go on too much. Go on some other schedule is basically the answer. So here's the thing. So I'm sharing the science on risk of injury. That's why ideally you may choose to wait an hour. You may choose to ignore the research. My job is just to share it, right? So the correlation between lumbar issues, that means your lower back, the discs particularly, like a slipped disc or herniated disc, are far greater when exercise takes place within the first hour of waking. Here's the reason behind that the correlation, the numbers, the science, but here's the reason behind it. And that is that at night, ideally, we're in bed, right? We're horizontal. The pressures of gravity are no longer acting on our spine. And because of that, the discs are full of fluid normally, and those are placed between each vertebra in our spine. We're actually taller first thing in the morning than we are later in the day. Now, many of us have experienced that to be true from, say, our 20s to our 50s, but it's true for all of us early to later in the day. Now, it might be minuscule the younger you are, but it's definitely a factor. And the reason for that is that overnight, while there's no pressure on them, those discs have the opportunity to plump up. They're getting hydrated with fluid in them. So it's good for health. It's supposed to be happening. But that means that when you wake in the morning and you just are upright, immediately you have this intervertebral pressure there that puts you at greater risk should you add additional pressure to yourself, like shoveling snow, pushing a snowblower, even picking up a heavy dog, doing yoga. Ironically, right? We think of yoga as, well, that's a gentle exercise, but it's got in it what we call BLT, bend, lift, and twist. I was not referencing bacon, by the way, right? So it's when you bend, you lift, or you twist. But certainly when you put them all together, so imagine some yoga poses. Some of you are there now in your head thinking rotated triangle. Yep. Right. And you're going to get into it and come up out of it. And so all of those are greater pressure. But even a plank, you might say, well, I could do some core work. I could do some core exercise, right? But a plank is what we call moment pressure. So there is pressure as you stabilize. Even if you're not holding your breath, there's pressure there. So again, that or the pushing of a snowblower or a lawnmower, that kind of thing, that adds to the intervertebral pressure already there and puts you at greater risk. So how do we know? You're not going to feel it. So you won't know it's going to happen, or I might be more vulnerable and maybe I shouldn't. It has nothing to do with your level of fitness. We can't stop that, from going vertical to horizontal, increasing the fluid within our disc. That's not about whether you're more fit or not. It's just about being upright and human. And so what we do know is by 60 minutes, about 90% of that extra vertebral pressure dissipates. So you're much safer if you wait. Now, if you only waited 40 minutes, are you still safer than if you don't wait at all? Yep, I would say so. And look at your frame size. So if you just do the very, very easy test, you wrap your fingers around your wrist, the opposite wrist. And if your fingers can touch, just barely touch, your average. If they overlap, you have a smaller frame. But if you can't wrap around, you have a larger or a thicker frame, you're probably also you have a thicker bone. You're more at risk than someone who is smaller and more petite in size. So that's just to kind of grade yourself or rate, how much at risk am I? But again, I think the biggest drive home thing is herniated discs do not give you a warning. There will be no, I feel a little bit sore or I feel fine. Therefore, I am fine. That's not it. It's just there. And those injuries happen. And then boom, they're gone. So the suggestion to be up for about an hour is so that if you so choose, you will be safer when you're exercising. And that's important to me that you know that. And if you can wait an hour to fuel with protein, yes, great, because there is a little blunting effect on the absorption of that protein. And your muscle protein synthesis has been still proven to be best at 60 to 90 minutes. Again, that's not a personal preference. That's based on science of older adults. This is what we know to be true. If that's not possible, but you're getting the protein in and it just has to come closer to the point where you finish the exercise, okay, far better that you get it in then than you don't get it in at all. Okay. So very important for you to see. So adjust it. If you can do the optimal part of the time on the weekends, perfect, do it. You're only going to strength train twice a week. You're not going to do high intensity interval training every day. So we're only talking a couple times a week when this is going to be true. That's you living you, right? We've just got to say, what do I need to do to make this work for me? Okay. Question 2. What does training to fatigue mean? Susi asks and says, I'm very strong-willed and like to train hard. I'm overmotivated, she says, but I can still somehow do some repetitions with good technique. But often I don't realize it was too much until after the workout when I feel tired. When is enough enough? So Susi really is describing two different things, right? So tired afterward is probably much more related to cortisol and adrenal fatigue than it is to the muscle, right? So Susi, you may want to look at whether you have too much volume or too much frequency. And by volume, I mean, how long is that workout? Really, it doesn't need to be all that long if you're doing a few repetitions because you're going heavy. Heavy is relative. And the way we gauge, is it heavy, is if you're doing 10 or fewer repetitions. So today, earlier, I worked out and I had very little time, honestly. So this is part of the reason I did this. So I did 3 sets, or sometimes I do 4. And on the last set, it was, about 8 reps on the second to last set. And it was just 4 reps on the very last set. It's all I could get because it was that heavy. And I wanted quality intensity in, but it wasn't going to come from doing 4 sets with higher number of reps to fatigue because I didn't have that kind of time. And I was due for a solid, heavy workout. So think about, are you spending more than 30 or 40 minutes? If you're going really heavy, you're probably overtraining. So that's going to give you more likelihood that you have overstressed and you will be tired afterward. But you didn't say in your message that you were overly sore, that your muscles were achy or overly sore, tight, tired. You said you were. So there's a big difference. But training to fatigue means you are lifting a weight that is heavy enough and or going slow enough with it, right? So that you couldn't actually do more repetitions. So it may be that you need to slow down. And that's a way to keep yourself in check to be sure you're truly using the muscle. So we all have a different tolerance. It's tricky, right? Because some people will reach muscular fatigue or get a little leery of going further because they don't want to get overly sore. I used to deal with that mindset obstacle for some of my clients. But I do want you to separate here. Feeling tired afterward, that's an adrenal issue. That's not about reaching muscular fatigue. So important for you to realize that you may have some cortisol and adrenaline and those types of issues going on. So look at volume, look at your intensity level, look at frequency, make sure you're backing down. So you only need to really strength train twice a week. If you're going heavy, shorter sessions should do it. But if you're still feeling tired between, you're under recovering or over exercising. So look at, are you getting sleep? Are you hydrating? Are you getting lots of vegetables? Eating adequate numbers of calories? Because if you're constantly in a chronic deficit for calories, you're probably short-sheeting your results and your recovery. And adequate protein, of course, is also very important. Okay, hope that helps, but there's really questions back to you on that one. And last but not least, Kathy says, if you feed yourself prior to a workout, what does that really mean? I could drink like 10 grams of protein or eat a spoonful of almond butter, half a banana. Is it any of those? What's ideal? What's best when you want to train? So we've gone over this several times in different places, master classes. There's some things on tape. But your body has a preference for carbohydrates if you're doing high intensity interval training. You want things that will clear from your gut quickly if you're doing that because your body needs to be like free. We don't want a bunch of fiber. We actually don't want fat. So you would choose maybe the half a banana with a smear of nut butter on it. That's just it. Not a spoonful, but a smear for flavor. That's great. If you were doing strength training, you want to have, 15 to 20 grams. 20 is ideal, according to American College of Sports Medicine, of a simple smoothie. So you put the protein powder in water or in almond milk, unflavored or unsweetened, whichever you prefer, but that would be ideal. Then you're putting protein in before you even start the protein building. You're helping yourself recover before you begin. Hope that helps. So, high protein smoothie about 60 to 90 minutes after. And it could be a smoothie or it could be a meal. If it's just time for a meal, you can do that. So, I'm a smoothie girl, and a lot of times it is a smoothie for me because it's convenient and there's no way to say, well, I don't have time. Are you kidding? It takes 2 minutes, right? So, all of those things. So, you can have lemon water, caffeine prior to a workout, but ideally, you're going to have, and no, you don't have to have caffeine and then wait a certain time. Actually, you can have caffeine right as. In fact, runners have caffeinated gels while they're running. So there's no wait time for that. And the closer you are to it, the more of an ergogenic aid it will be, supporting endurance and fat burning. So I hope that that helps. And if you are listening and you have a question, please share it with me, and I will look forward to getting that. You can place it in the Facebook group at the Flipping 50 Insiders. And what are you waiting for? Let's start Flipping 50 today.